Hello and welcome to Concert Pipeline. I'm Steve Jones. Today on the program, we have someone whose music spans decades, not just in sound, but in thought. The album Crossroads isn't just a collection of songs, it's a reflection of ideas about life, society, love, and where we're headed. I have Gary Marks on the program. We're going to talk to him in just a moment about this album that he put out for record release day. And I know he's very proud of it, spanning again music dating back to the 70s. Before I was even a twinkle in my parents' eye, uh, Gary was making music. I'm going to talk to him about his music. I'm going to talk to him a little bit about poetry and the books that he's written, and so on. We're going to have a good talk here, bringing him in just a moment. Before we do, let's catch up on what's going on in my world, in Concert Pipeline's world. Concert Pipeline did just get approved for media credentials for Bottle Rock Napa Valley 2026. I'm going on Saturday, the Saturday date of Bottle Rock this year, which is headlined by Foo Fighters. Yeah, this guy right there, Dave Grohl. Is going to be headlining Foo Fighter set at Bottle Rock for the third time, and I'm really looking forward to that. So many other bands are going to be playing that I can't wait to see. It's going to be a blast. I'm not sure who we're going to be interviewing yet. I haven't set up even one Bottle Rock interview, but I'm looking forward to it. Some of the gems from Bottle Rock this year on Saturday the 23rd. The return of Jackie and Judy. That is a band with Fred Armisen and some of his buddies from us. Another famous band, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, AJR, and LCD Sound System and the Foo Fighters. Pretty much, I want to camp out at the Prudential stage, but I'll be doing interviews alongside as well. There's a bunch of other bands that are playing. Better Than Ezra is the one that's on a different stage that I really want to catch and hopefully get a chance to interview again. For the first time in 20 plus years. I mean, it's probably been 25 years since I interviewed Better Than Ezra on one of my programs. So it would be great to catch up with them all these years later. Speaking of catching up, next week on the program, we have an all music episode, at least as of now. I am covering the four match show at Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, where they brought out some friends from their tour that they're currently on, Phantom Planet, and dropping the name of the other band right now, but it was really a great show, just acoustic show out in the field in Golden Gate Park for a cause. It was wonderful. I got to see them on that show as well as two nights before at the Castro Theater, one of my favorite bands that I've gotten to see now four times live, spanning the West Coast from LA to Seattle and now to San Francisco between October and the present time. A band that hasn't been around for 18 plus years, so long and so overdue. And I got to share that with friends and with my son, and we're going to talk about it all next week and bring in a lot of acoustic music from that concert that I'm going to share. So tune into that. Can't wait for that one. But right now, let's go ahead and let's bring Gary Marks in on the program. Gary, welcome to Concert Pipeline.
Hi.
Gary, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. Thank you. My son gave me a cold, and so a little under the weather. Started out a little rough, but had to get some Dayquil in me and get the day day moving along. And I'm like, okay, I'll be fine. But I just needed
Yeah.
to.
Three kids later, I understand.
You've gotten one or two, right? I'm sure. So
Three, yeah.
two. I mean,
So,
one or two colds
oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
over the years.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
absolutely.
well, thank you again for being flexible with your time. I don't like to reschedule, and I like never cancel, but,
Oh,
but
fine. That's fine.
yeah, yeah. Well, we have a lot to talk about with Crossroads today, but I want to start back a little bit earlier if you're okay with that, and kind of get a foundation for what your music was like as you grew up. What were your parents listening to you in your household? What was that like for you as a kid?
Well, my mom was a prodigy violinist when she was a little girl.
Wow. Okay.
So they moved from London when she was 4 years old to study at the New York Philharmonic on a scholarship. And she played Carnegie Hall at 10.
As
And
you do.
I've never played Carnegie Hall. I have sat there and watched Peter, Paul, and Mary once. Um, and then she graduated Juilliard at 16 and
Gosh.
and quit.
What? She's like, okay, I've reached the pinnacle by 16. This is all way too fast. We need to slow things down a bit here. And okay. So she reached that level. What? She just stopped. She never looked back.
Yeah, she just like this was not my life. I didn't choose this.
Uh-huh.
And she became a USO dancer during the war and drove an ambulance and, just became the wild child that my grandparents were completely freaked out.
Yeah, I
Um,
bet.
Similar to my parents being freaked out when I dropped out of college during the Vietnam War. It was, uh, yeah, I told mom, you should have known. I mean, you produced a rebel.
Right.
So I didn't know that story until I was 16 years old.
Really.
Nobody
Wow.
wanted to talk about it.
No, they didn't want to sway you. They didn't want they didn't want that to be a part of your experience.
Right. So my mom was listening to Ray Charles and Etta James and Billy Eckstine and listening to this piano player named Peter Nero. And then the Beatles came out and she dragged me downstairs from my homework, which I hardly ever did, to watch these kids. And I looked at them and said, oh, they're weird looking. And she said, listen to this music.
Yeah.
And the minute I heard it, I just wanted to be a musician. That was it. I was 13 and started playing air guitar that night. That was my first instrument.
Nice. There you go. Yeah, you kick him master. Yeah. I
And I
saw
got
Paul
very,
McCartney. I saw Paul McCartney like 2 weeks ago for the first time, and it was just
oh,
incredible. It was incredible.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
an amazing writer, really amazing. So I
Yeah.
got completely addicted to the Beatles. And then when I was 16, I finally decided I wanted to play guitar. And I wrote my first song. And
Mhm.
I went downstairs to my mom and said, I wrote a song. And I played it for her and I said, what do you think? And she said, well, do you want me to tell you as a mother or as a friend?
Yeah.
As
Had
a,
some feedback. She had some feedback.
as a mother, I hope you write more songs. As a friend, it was terrible. So I asked why, and she said, well, you're not going to write great songs following the AM radio, and you're not going to write great songs knowing three chords on your guitar.
Yeah.
Have to follow the dream of the music. You can't force the dream to follow your limitations, or you're not going to write anything good. So I went upstairs and started making up chords on my guitar, like just finding different forms that I would call, Alex or whatever. I didn't really know the names of them. And
Yeah.
that's how I wrote my first songs. And some of those songs are on my first record.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you did first start writing, back in the 70s, like were you thinking of things in terms of songs or more of ideas at that point?
Well, I mean, when I started writing in 1967, when I was 17, I was full-fledged into being a songwriter. I was like determined to
Yeah.
be a Beatle. And but then I got turned on to an amazing musician on I promised myself I would never forget the date. It was October 23rd, 1969. I saw Tim Buckley
Okay.
in concert. I don't know if you know who he is.
I know Jeff Buckley, but
Jeff was his son.
okay.
Yeah.
So,
So Tim Buckley played 12-string guitar
uh-huh.
and he had a band that didn't have drums. It had a bass player, it had a vibes player, David Friedman, one of the great vibes players in the world.
Yeah.
And it had a guitar player that was just kind of noodling around. And Tim Buckley played 12 string and had an incredible voice and wrote these really, really odd songs. And I'm like, I want a 12 string and I want to do that. And from that time on, I didn't really want to hear normal arranging to my songs, and I didn't want to write normal songs. So my first album was very odd folk jazz rock long formed, and I found John Scofield before he'd ever recorded, and he played on the record, and David Samuels, another great vibes player, was the vibes player, and Paul McCandless eventually played horns. He's from Oregon, the group Oregon.
Hmm.
And then I met Art Landy, and his band played on my second record. And I just kind of was writing kind of folk rock and having great jazz players play over it. That was my style.
Yeah. And when you're making this music, are you envisioning playing it live at the same time also? Are you like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, no, I really knew that we were gonna create something in the studio that probably wouldn't be able to be reproduced at the same level of quality. And I've never really liked gigging or performing because the sound is never what I want to hear. Uh, Um, so no, I mean, when we went into the studio, it was like, this is where the songs are going to be born and lived and died, and they're going to be on this record, and that's going to memorialize them. And I don't ever have to play them again.
Yeah.
That was kind of my mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great artistic outlet that end, huh? So,
Yeah,
yeah. So I'm curious, because I do want to get into Crossroads a lot. I think that'll kind of frame most of our conversation because it really framed your whole career. But
yeah.
but before we get into Crossroads, I want to kind of ask you about your writing in general because I mean, spanning on your website, you have so much. I mean, there's so much to dive into. You're a poet, you're an author, you're a ghostwriter. Obviously a musician. Tell me about those all those different hats, how they all come together. Did you see yourself as a writer first and foremost before musician? I know I asked like 10 questions in that question, but tell me kind of some of that high level.
Yes, maybe, no, yeah, no, kidding. Well, really, it all formulates
Uh-huh.
from kind of the way I write both novels and music, which is improvising. So, as an improviser, I learned improvisation theory from my first piano teacher, Michael Cochran, who played on Gathering, and then Art Landy, who's one of the great pianists in the world. I found him and said, please teach me. And then he wound up playing on my record. But uh, those guys taught me how to improvise, like the theory behind it. And so when I write, I'll kind of just grab a bunch of notes on guitar and see if that sounds good and then move it from there. Or if I'm playing piano, which is normally what I do,
Hmm.
I'll just start improvising, kind of like trying to pretend I'm Keith Jarrett or something. And then sometimes something interesting comes up and I'll tape it or I'll start singing over it and then tape it and then just follow the thread. And as a novelist and really as a lyricist, I just come up with a couple of words or a sentence. And if there's something that follows it, I follow it. But even with my novels, I've never had an outline of a story. I
Yeah.
just start writing, and if the sentence sounds like a good beginning sentence to a novel, I just keep going. And then I watch the characters form and I watch them go through their life, and I'm like, really? You're going to do that? Oh my God. And then an ending shows up.
Yeah, yeah. The characters drive the story, and you're just a vehicle, right?
Yeah. So, it's all really improvisation. That's what I enjoy the most is kind of being surprised by what comes in. Yeah.
Yeah, and your poetry, and I don't know enough about poetry to kind of speak to this, but one of the things I like is some of your poems, like you organize by like colors. So there's poems within color. I mean, within poems, yeah, sort of thing, which I think is pretty creative. Where does that come from?
Well, I just discovered it one day. It's called, I started calling it co-opetry, color poetry, but people didn't understand what I meant. So then I just called it color poetry. But what it is I write a poem and never really considered myself a great poet. I'm not like, that.
Sure.
But what I wound up seeing is that if I followed words from the beginning to the ending and put one color to it, it made a poem inside the poem.
Yeah.
So, pretty much can do that with any poem that's long enough to give you a chance to find the right poem inside of it. Maybe there are two poems inside of it, and you use a second color or a third color. And it was just a form of poetry I have invented. You can copyright it on this show. It's now historically copyrighted. And
No one can steal it. No one can ever do it again. You will take them to court. You will make some money.
well, on my website, I say anybody who wants to do a color poetry, send it in on my website, and the board of color poetry will check it out, and maybe even put it on my website.
Yeah, and Calopatry, we're gonna get that off the ground. Okay,
Oh, that's good.
it might take a minute, but we'll get it there. And it's that too is yours. We don't need people stealing it without going through you.
Great. Great.
That's awesome. So let's talk about Crossroads, right? And you released it yesterday for Record Store Release Day. These are songs from 1976 to 2021 is the most recent song on it. It kind of reads like a lifelong journal of sorts for you as well. And there's a lot of recurring ideas throughout it. But tell me when you're kind of thinning out your catalog to these songs, how did you determine what made the cut?
Well, my first three albums have been reissued a bunch in Japan and Europe, and the last reissue was actually my first record gathering by Lantern Records in Italy, and my wife and I went to Rome to visit them, and over dinner we started talking about the politics of the day and history and fairness and peace and I decided to ask them if they wanted me to put together an album of socio-political lyrics that are everything from, what is the highest form of love? What does that look like? How do you act on that? Meditation, finding your inner core, all the way to like, really, does this have to be what a president is? Which are songs I wrote in 1976 about Nixon. That is kind
Wow.
of a 2.0 now. So they all, even the older songs, have a tremendous resonance to what's going on in 2026 America,
Yeah.
psychologically and socially and politically. And that's what the album is, Crossroads. We're at a crossroads.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Some of the ideas, kind of power versus freedom, inner and outer truth, human consciousness and awareness, so you kind of span a lot of different a lot of different topics through your songs. And when you're writing, a song like, do you think about, okay, this is something that's very personal to me? Do you ever kind of step outside of yourself and kind of think bigger picture as well? Where do you tend to drift?
I think I've just, I write what comes to me. I was influenced in the beginning, way back before maybe you were even born, I don't know,
Yeah,
by Phil Oakes and Bob Dylan, older music, and Joni Mitchell's older albums, and just realizing that, hey, music, even with the Beatles, with Sergeant Pepper, it's a foundation that you can build on with words. The words don't have to just be there to fill up syllables in the
yeah,
music. They can actually have the music magnify what you want to say if you say something powerful enough. So, and again, it goes back to my first and only writing lesson with my mom, because the lyrics that I wrote in that first song were horrible. And she said, look, you may be in love with this girl, Sherry, and that's very nice, but you don't know what it's like to be left. That's not it. So write
yeah,
about what you know about, write about baseball and dreams and school and generations and parents. And so really I took that combined with what I was hearing out there in the late 60s and decided that I wanted my lyrics to be really equally, if not more important than the music I was writing.
Yeah, yeah. And we kind of touched on this a little bit, but yeah, so there's a sense of grief about the planet in in this album a little bit as well. Is when did that first enter your writing? Was that Nixon? Was that is that kind of when that entered?
Yeah, because Nixon became president the first time when I was 22 years old, and uh, I saw the campaign and what he was doing, and it's like, if a Democrat had run the campaign like that, I wouldn't have voted for the Democrat.
Yeah,
It was like, when are we just going to get down to ideas and who can do the best thing for America? And he wasn't it. So, and it turned out to be that he really wasn't it. So I I was very, very influenced by the politics at the time. And it seems like politics kind of cycle around. Then you get a Democrat and then you get another Republican. And then some of the Republicans are good, some of the Democrats are maybe not so good. But what I focus on is whether you wind up historically being good or bad, tell the truth and don't beat up weak people and just, try and be a good president for everybody. So that's kind of the litmus test I use when I look at politics.
yeah. And you've compared to this current administration a little bit, like the relevancy of these songs back from Nixon and that sort of thing. Like a lot of times I leave wondering like where do we go from here? Even in a couple years, like, I mean, so many things have changed in this administration and norms broken down. Like, what does the world look like even in a couple years for either
Well,
side? Like
I,
whatever's
I,
next. Like,
yeah, I think it'll, probably just keep cycling back. The pendulum swings.
mhm,
We had, Reagan and then Clinton and then the Bushes and then Obama and then, it would just keep
mhm,
swinging back and forth. And, hopefully each president undoes the bad things from the previous president. And that's possible. I think
yeah,
right now the thing that's the most disturbing is the Supreme Court because they are allowing things from the
yeah,
presidency that never was allowed before.
yeah,
So then the question becomes, if and when a Democrat becomes president after this, is he or she going to have to take the same power and kind of throw it back in the Supreme Court's face and say,
yeah.
well, if you allowed the last president to do that because that's what you consider constitutional, then I'm going to do this and unwind everything and go in the exact opposite direction at 100 miles an hour. I don't think any of it is really good
Yeah.
to do, but that's what they've given the presidency. So then every administration is going to have to use that power and hopefully for the better.
And that's what I'm saying too, right? I mean, because this is power that didn't exist in the past. I mean,
Right.
usually you took, the three pillars and kind of they were all separate, and you were able to kind of trust in different sort,
Yeah,
different strengths that each one had. But
right.
when it's all encompassing, does a Democrat have the ability to? Does a Democrat have the backbone to do these things that constitutionally and otherwise we said no, you can't do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've often, I know this is very radical, but when the Supreme Court made its decisions, Biden was still president. I would have come out as Biden and said, I'm calling off the election and
Yeah,
do something about it. I'd be happy for you to tell me that I can't do that and set rules of the road. But until you do, Supreme Court, I'm calling off the elections. What are you going to do about it? I can't be impeached. You can't put me in jail.
yeah,
What are you going to do now?
yeah. Good
Yeah, I
questions.
mean, I wouldn't have wanted him to actually call off the election. I'm just saying, call
Yeah,
the Supreme Court's bluff. If you're going to give the presidency the power of a king, the king just called off the elections. I would have
Yeah,
been very interested to see what would have happened from there.
it would have been interesting indeed, for sure. So, yeah. Uh, one thing I liked was schoolyard shadows. What good is learning if it erases their reflection? So in that you're kind of you're pretty critical of educational systems, and was that based on personal experience, or where did that come from?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I think a lot of people have had this experience. Um, your 11-year-old might be experiencing it. It's just when teachers kind of cut off your creative thinking and try and push you into a formula because you have to pass a standardized test
Yeah,
and don't joke around. Your joke may be funny, but you're not allowed to be funny. You're not allowed to be whoever you are at home. Just shut up and do the work and become a part of the machine. So I felt that when I was a kid and hated it and didn't like school, and had a friend who was just a brilliant thinker, just so out of the box and so kind and gentle, this girl I knew. And she was not getting good grades because they didn't understand her, but outside of school, she was brilliant.
yeah, yeah.
So, that's one of the
That's
lines in there. As some of the deepest people I know nearly flunked right out of high school. I think it's not just her that's experienced things like that.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I mean, even in my life, I've seen kind of the value of, standard education kind of change, dramatically, right? Like, I'm not pushing my kids for college necessarily, unless they have a very specific direction to go. Not to mention that, the cost of it, is ridiculous,
Yeah, it's crazy.
find something you want to do, pursue it. You get find your own path of education, and nothing's stopping you from going there. You don't have to pay the system 100 grand or anything to get a piece of
Right. And
paper.
if he winds up, or if a child winds up wanting to be a lawyer or a doctor and you need a degree, great. Go through that because then you are dealing with the system and you have to follow the laws of the system. But just to become the CEO of a brand new tech company, I don't think you really have to go through college. You have to just come up with the idea and run with it. Not going to do
Yeah,
any good to go to business school. I mean, that you learn,
yeah,
business school is what you learn when you start a business.
right. Yeah, yeah. You learn so much from just going out and doing, right?
Right, right.
Yeah. When you revisit some of the songs that you wrote, like in the '70s for this album, do you feel like the same person? Do you feel like you've changed a lot?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way that I believe in reincarnation is that we pretty much reincarnate every morning.
Mhm.
Like, I don't really think we're the same person from yesterday in some ways. And then when you take it a week or a month or a year or 10 years, no, I mean, you are who you've learned, the pain that's come, what you've learned from surrender, joy. You just either deepen or get more cynical or frustrated, but that's not the same person you were. So I think, yeah, I mean, I think we're all very, very different year to year. Hopefully better, hopefully smarter, wiser, kinder, but sometimes not. I've probably had some pretty off years myself.
I think we all have, yeah, yeah. And so, if Crossroads is a snapshot of your thinking over the decades, then what's one idea maybe that you've never been able to resolve?
Well, love is a tough one. There's like these theoretical ways of thinking about love that kind of don't work. And then ways of like when you finally with somebody who you want to stay with, the compromise that take place, the compromises and the understanding of what the limits of love are, and then go past limits. How do you break through those limits and make it better than ever year by year? I think that's very, very tough. I didn't learn it. I didn't even probably start to want to learn it until I was in my 40s.
Yeah.
But then I kind of got sick of just going from person to person and probably heart sick of it and um, really just wanted to do the work and find the right person and just stick it out.
Yeah. And do you find it like therapeutic to write about love? Do you find that that's like helping you, kind of work through, a lot of these these feelings and paths that you've taken with love?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what I'm learning along the way, I like to write about that. Uh, I think in the beginning, my first love songs were all about being left, even though I had never been left. But my mom died when I was 26, and so it
Oh
felt
wow.
like this kind of leaving of love. And so I think I was working that out and putting it into a love song about a girl, a mythical girl. And
Yeah.
then when I also got left, I really knew how to write about that really well. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
when I was in love, I am a very optimistic person and very enthusiastic person day to day. So I really knew how to write about that. So I got pretty good at it in both directions. But there's a song on Crossroads called "The Love We Take," and that song is something I've definitely learned along the way, which is, we kind of when we're in a relationship, we kind of um, think it's okay to withhold love if we're not feeling like the person deserves it that day or that hour or that week. And that's pretty toxic to the concept of love. So what I say is you just have to give love away moment to moment all the time, it's not love
Yeah.
at that
Yeah.
moment. Yeah.
And what
So
do you think? What would you say you learned about love after your mom left? Like after you lost your mom? Like how did that change you? Kind of on that path.
I think I was so afraid of being left that I just became, into being with a lot of different people and
Yeah.
not doing the work and just having fun. And and also I think a lot of the uh, girls or women that I met or fell in love with or were attracted to kind of it felt like I could help them in some way. And I'm a kind of a natural teacher, so I liked helping. But the relationship that I wound up being in was a person I did not need to help. They were my equal and still my equal. And 30 years later, I'm trying to catch up to them emotionally, and it's still a pretty good relationship. It's great. I never thought I'd really be happy in a marriage, to be honest. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's great. It worked.
Yeah. That's awesome. And do you have kids?
3 kids. They're all out of
Oh,
the
you
nest.
said you had three. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're gone. They're
Yeah.
all musicians.
I was going
Uh,
to ask. That was my next question. Was did they follow in the family path?
yes, two are songwriters, singer-songwriters, and my son is an incredible drummer, studio level drummer. I mean, he plays to animals as leaders and a Tool and all these crazy bands that, with asymmetric meters and all that. And the funny thing is, he doesn't sing and he doesn't think he's a good singer. I mean, he can keep pitch, but he happens to have perfect pitch,
Yeah.
which is not necessarily a musical thing. I mean, 1 out of 10,000 people, I think, have it, and they're
Yeah.
not all musicians. But if I start humming a song in the house, he'll say that's not the right key. And then he'll hum it and then he'll put it on the iPhone and that's the key.
Yeah. You don't necessarily need it, right? I mean, like music is made to be imperfect, but when you have that perfection, it's kind of nice too. So,
It can actually be a negative because if you're playing piano and the piano's slightly out of tune, it sounds like fingernails on glass.
mhm.
I don't have perfect pitch. I'm happy about that, but I have relative pitch. So relative pitch can be learned. So you can learn
Yeah.
how to sing a fifth of a note, but you may not know what that initial note, the name of that initial note is. It's just a tone. but then you can learn what a fifth is from there by knowing what a fifth sounds like in your head. That's relative pitch.
Yeah. Yeah. And did your kids find their way in music like on their own, or did they kind of see you in this world and really want to emulate what
They
you're doing?
they just grew up in a living room with four guitars, a drum set, and a, a Börsendorfer 7'4" piano and a Martin 12 string and
There's no getting away
amplifiers.
from it.
It's like they walked into the living room and just started playing with toys.
Yeah, these are the toys that they have, right? No Tinker toys for them. So
So yeah, they grew up in that world, and then I have been a teacher of improvisation theory. So because of my mom's experience of like learning all this classical music and then walking away, I don't read notes, I read chords. And when my kids would sit down at the piano, I would let them ask me a question. I would wait. So when one of my 8-year-old kids would say, Dad, what is this and why does this sound good? I would just give them the answer and walk away.
yeah,
So instead of sitting down and teaching them structured lessons, I just answered their questions. And when they didn't have any more questions, I'd walk away. And it worked.
it works. It works. Have they listened to Crossroads? What do they think of your music?
Yeah, they're really proud of me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
My son my son Sean has this phrase he uses. It's like this generational phrase. It's like he's a god, you know. It's like he'll listen to Eric Clapton. Yeah, he's a god. So when my record came out, he said, Dad, you're a god. And I said,
Ah,
I may be a god, but I'm not the god because if I was the god and you're my son, who would you be? You know?
yeah. Well, I don't like to label myself, but
But no, they're really proud of me and they've liked my music. They used to go to bed listening to my CDs, and it's been really cute. And my wife is so into my music. She's like helps me with social media and just as always said, you know, you write, that's what you do. And when you're writing, I'll keep the kids away and just write. That's who I married and that's who I want to have as a husband. So she's been amazingly supportive.
oh, that's great.
Very
It's
lucky.
really, it's really great. Um, I mean, this kind of segues a little bit into AI and kind of where we're at with that. You have a book also, biography of an AI, and so I think you have done some thinking on the topic. I'm kind of curious about where you land with where we're at right now in this moment, and in the abilities of with the tap of a button, to create a top 20 song able to be made just by a computer versus obviously putting in the work, putting in the effort, doing making the colors come out of the poem, that sort of thing, right? Like where do you land with that?
Well, I think AI can definitely do very, very creative things. And if people enjoy that, that's good. Um, Someone once asked, there was an AI professor at Berkeley, and he said, uh, who here thinks that AIs will eventually be able to be as creative as human beings? And everybody raised their hand except for my daughter. And he said, why aren't you raising your hand? And she said, because in my household, as a bunch of songwriters, I understand that music oftentimes happens from mistakes. So does great science. And you can even program in an algorithm into an AI to purposely make mistakes. But you can't program into an AI which mistake to choose to follow.
Mm. Yeah,
That's a human decision. And every
yeah.
human being could make a different decision on a particular phrase or a sentence or an idea for a story or a movie. Once that happens, the human experience can't really be replicated even by another human. So that's what makes it impossible for AIs to really kind of like take over the creative world, you know? They can enter it just like pop producers who know how to formulate pop songs can enter the creative space, and they can do what they want. I mean, people like it, they like it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It feels like a daunting time, but also it felt like it would be here yesterday and I'd take over everything. I think we're going to reach this place where it's like, okay, it's supplemental, right? It's
Yeah.
uh, it's a supplemental tool. I think there's always going to be a need for, human involvement in the arts.
And I also think that just in terms of everything, psychology or whatever, it can be a very positive supplemental experience. Uh, Science, it can tremendously help science, the good science and the bad science, weapons of war and medicine to prevent us from dying at 90 years old, all of the above. So it's really not like what happened when they invented the bomb, because the bomb could only either force peace by not using it or destroy us. This is a tool and a weapon. And so then we as humans are going to have to be smart enough to know which one to choose.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, as we wind down, I'm curious, like, what would you say is your favorite concert that you've been to as a fan?
Ever?
Sure.
Ha. There was a Dave Matthews concert at Shoreline
Mhm.
that was pretty much,
Oh, there you go.
yeah, he
Shoreline,
was,
Mountain View. Yeah,
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 yeah, that was amazing. But I mean, I saw U2, but it was at a stadium. And even though they deserved to be on the list of one of the best concerts, we were sitting far back enough to where it was like, I don't know if I can go to a stadium again. But they
yeah.
were amazing for to be able to pull that off in that venue. I also saw the Police when they were doing like kind of a getting back together concert,
Mhm.
and they were still amazing as the
Yeah.
Police. I mean, I think Sting is great, and I like all of his music from all the different eras of Sting, but the Police were just, man, you know, they were amazing. And Stuart Copeland was such a
Yeah.
fantastic drummer, so creative, bringing in all those kind of reggae beats and odd things. I mean, that was just a great band. So them.
Y-
I did not
Yeah.
see the Beatles. If I ever had, I would automatically have put that on my list. And Tim Buckley, that one concert, because it really changed my life musically. And there have
Yeah.
been a lot more. I'm probably leaving a ton out. Oh, I saw Ray Charles once
Oh, okay.
at the Santa Cruz. It was in Santa Cruz. And
Like,
I had a pass because I knew the people putting on the show.
yeah.
So I walked all the way up to the stage while he was playing and stood in front of this gigantic speaker. It was probably 6 feet high,
Uh-huh.
and all coming out of it was his voice. And
Oh,
he
wow.
the raylets and a horn section and drums. And I mean, and he's playing piano and he wasn't a microtone off pitch all night. I stood in front of that amp the entire time, just going like, what is this isn't even possible in a recording studio. I mean,
Yeah.
he was amazing. That was
Oh,
great. That was great.
that's in-
And
that's
the other
incredible.
great concert, I'll just mention one more, was I saw a couple of Keith Jarrett improvisations, and those were really spectacular.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you from like the Bay? Did you live in
Yeah.
okay. Where in the Bay are you from?
So when I first went there, I was living in Santa Barbara, and then I heard about Art Landy and heard that he was only in Berkeley. So I moved to Berkeley, 6 hours away, and studied with him. And then we wound up doing records together. And then I wound up living in San Francisco, Berkeley, Marin County, all around
Yeah.
that area. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you probably went to a number of shows at the Fillmore.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. And a couple of others that were later. I forget the names of them, but I mean, I actually played some, oh, the Keystone. So I
Hmm.
played some gigs at the Keystone back then with my rock band and a
Yeah,
couple of other shows.
yeah.
One night it was kind of like Spinal Tap. You know Spinal
Mhm.
Tap, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we went off stage and we weren't expecting an encore because we were opening for Huey. And all of a sudden, Huey's like, dude, they're still clapping up there. You got an encore. So I'm like, okay, guys, we run up. And by the time we get to the curtain, it had died down. And we're like, are we going to walk on stage when the applause is like almost nothing? So we went back downstairs.
Oh no.
A very
And
Spinal Tap moment.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And how was opening for Huey?
Yeah, Huey.
Like
Yeah,
like
I've
did
opened for Huey a bunch. Even at this little club called Uncle Charlie's in Marin
Mhm.
County.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was a really nice, really great, really good ally.
Oh, that's cool. I've gotten to see him once, and he puts on a fun show for sure.
Yeah, and he is who he seems to be. He's like the all-American guy who like doesn't put people down and has a really nice attitude towards everybody. He's actually like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Kind of refreshing to know. He never really got like cynical and no, I'm not giving you an autograph. He never really turned into that guy. So that was fun.
no. Is there? I mean, while we're on concerts, is there a show that you remember being just like a pinnacle where everything just kind of locked in, and you knew it was special in that moment
Oh, where I was playing?
that you played? Yeah,
Yeah, there were a few of those. Um, when it didn't really happen when I was playing with John Scofield and Paul McCandless and all that because we didn't play together as a band that much. We were basically just doing recordings. Uh, with my rock band,
yeah,
there were nights when, it was loud and the bass was like coming right through my stomach, and I was just like, I could hear my voice really well, and I was just like, yeah, that felt great. But I basically, tell people I don't really like gigging and touring because there's not enough sonic control over the music. And really, I don't want my songs to fall short of the way they were recorded. And I
yeah, yeah,
don't really love playing my songs over and over again. I would rather write new songs. But in
yeah.
in terms of those moments, I had a couple. It was really fun.
That's very cool. That's very cool. What comes next from Crossroads? What's next after the Crossroads? I know we're in that moment right now, but what do you see? I know you're not slowing down, so.
Right. Well, I also have about 40 more songs that are
Oh,
of that quality level that I would really love to find some indie label to put out. If not Lantern, someone else. Hopefully Lantern will enjoy the record sales of Crossroads. I hear it's doing very well, and we can work together again because they're great to work with.
yeah,
And indie record companies in general, you usually find nicer people that are more artist friendly than when you get into the big companies. I was offered a pretty major record deal when within the first couple of months of meeting my wife to be. And, part of the contract was, hey, if the record does really well, you'll be on tour for 9 months. And I'm like, no, I won't. I'm not. I told her, I said, if I sign this, our relationship's over. I mean, you're not going to
yeah.
want to be Peter Pan's shadow. This isn't going to work. So I
That's not what you want to do. Yeah.
threw it in the garbage can. I don't know if I would have done that 10 years earlier, but
You know,
yeah,
at that moment in life, you're not the guy to go out on tour and live that life, and like it is grueling, like never
it's
being in the
true.
same bed, and yeah, that is tough.
Right, because I did do some tours, of Europe and some of California, and just there are people, I always tell people this, there are people that feed off that energy. And it's great. I mean,
Yeah.
the Bruce Springsteens and Eric Claptons and all that. And they get out on stage, they can do the same thing every night. Well, I mean, Eric would play different things, but
Oh yeah.
just feed off that energy and feed off the power of everybody together, right? Coldplay and things like that. And that's great. I really admire that they're able to do that. I just have never had that feeling on stage. I
Yeah.
just wanted to get off and go home and write songs.
Yeah. The writing's where it's at for you, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. Well, Gary, I want to thank you for taking the time today. I really appreciate it, and for sharing your music and getting to dive into it. It's really an amazing, kind of culmination of your career, which is awesome. I mean, so many different avenues and tones, and I mean, I love it. And thanks for sharing it.
No, you're more than welcome. It was fun. Thank you
Absolutely,
for,
absolutely.
yeah.
I'm gonna pop the episode up tomorrow, so I'll shoot over links when it's live. But pretty
Great.
quick turnaround for this one. So
All right, great. Thank you,
yeah,
Steve. Appreciate
yeah,
it.
no problem. You have a good evening ahead. Okay.
Thank you. Feel better.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. I already do talking to you. So
Oh, that's good. That's good. All right. We'll talk soon.
that was my interview with Gary Marks here on Concert Pipeline, and that takes us to the final segment on the program, the music news. I have a couple stories to wind out the program today. Pretty much all centered around Coachella. Mostly all centered around Coachella. This is weekend two of Coachella Festival down in Indio, California. And while the lineup may have been the same, the sets certainly were not. They differed from night to night with each of the different headliners. And at the time of this recording, only two of the three nights have passed, but there's enough to cover just from just from what's happened in the first couple of nights of weekend two. So Somber, who is going to be playing Bottle Rock in Napa actually next month, he was joined by Billy Idol for Eyes Without a Face at Coachella, and he also covered Radiohead's Fake Plastic Trees during his weekend two set. So I mean, there's one cameo that came out, Billy Idol. I mean, that's really cool. It just came just weeks after Somber's surprise duet with the Smashing Pumpkins' Billy Corgan at the first weekend of the California Festival, where he played a version of 1979. So you could check that out. Madonna joined forces with Sabrina Carpenter at Coachella for three tracks: Vogue, Like a Prayer, and a new unreleased track that she did with Sabrina Carpenter, with some songs that are seemingly from her recently announced Confessions 2 album that's coming 20 years after the original. So this was Sabrina Carpenter's second stint on Coachella main stage. She brought out Madonna as a surprise appearance. She also had Gina Davis play an older version of herself, much like she had Gina Davis's counterpart in Thelma and Louise play last weekend. So kind of a good little pairing there. And yeah, Susan Sarandon was who she brought out last weekend, and then Will Ferrell made a guest appearance last weekend, and there was a lot of speculation. Yes, she did bring out Madonna this time. She also had some other guests as well. I mean, it was a packed set for sure, and people were really stoked about the Madonna thing. The Strokes closed their Coachella set with a politically charged montage calling out the CIA and the U.S. government that follows their performance from last week when we saw them subtly take aim at Jeff Bezos. So they get a little political during their Coachella sets, which has mixed feelings. But they performed just ahead of Justin Bieber's set, which people were flocking towards. After last week, it was just him and his computer and singing to his songs that were playing on YouTube, and there was speculation over whether that was due to him not owning the rights to it. I read that that's not the case. That he still could play his own songs even if he didn't have the rights to them. That this was an intentional thing. This was him kind of coming back and diving into and embracing where he's at now. I think I said a couple of things on last week's podcast about how it was kind of phoning it in for $10 million to just do Justin Bieber karaoke to his own songs. But after reading people's comments and kind of watching a couple of videos of some of his stuff, I'm not a Justin Bieber fan, but I do respect the dude and the artist and where he's at in his career and the pain he's had to go being one of the top pop stars in the world, much like Michael Jackson, had to live with. He's he's one of few who can understand what it's like to be like Justin Bieber, right? And so him kind of in this moment taking it, doing just a completely stripped down set of just him, and once in a while a collaborator is something completely different. He also, there's this moment that was pretty cool where, um, what's her name? I don't know. I'm blanking on it. Justin Bieber. Let's look at it. Okay, Billie Eilish. That's it. Came out on stage. I don't know that it was planned because I think Justin Bieber's wife Hailey Bieber nudged Billie Eilish to go out on stage while Justin was playing "One Less Lonely Girl," and Billie Eilish was so embarrassed and so kind of in a cocoon, of herself. And then Justin just gave her this big, massive hug, that lasted for a long time and really was this really touching moment. Um, it was very cool. Billie Eilish didn't sing with him or anything. He brought her over to his single chair, sat her down, gave her a big hug, and then she ran off back into the crowd. Pretty cool moment. And those are kind of some of the highlights from Coachella. Record Store Day 2026, which we talked about with our guest today, Gary, was a smash. Apparently, it had fans flocking to stores for limited edition releases with exclusive Taylor Swift and Slipknot records up for grabs. Lots of record releases. Charlie XCX, Muse, Sway, David Bowie, The Cure, K-pop Demon Hunters, Paramore, and many more supporting record release. So getting people into record stores, the few that still exist, for limited edition copies of these albums. Pretty cool thing. And then Paul McCartney's new album is set to feature a collaboration with Ringo Starr. They're going to trade vocals on the nostalgic "Home to Us," with Ringo also playing drums on the track. So cool that we got two Beatles still around and able to make music and share that moment together and to be friends. And you love it, right? Because it hasn't always been that way. And I completely enjoyed having the opportunity to see Paul McCartney a few weeks ago. It was incredible. It was incredible, and felt so fortunate to be able to do that, and see him play songs from the Beatles, from Paul McCartney, from Wings, all of it, and it was beautiful. So go Paul McCartney. And closing out with friend of Paul McCartney, Dave Grohl. He made a rare political statement on deeply divided America. He says there needs to be change. It's hard not to feel political living in America. He has attempted to stay out of the political arena in his career, but they're preparing to release their 12th studio album, Your Favorite Toy, later this month. Actually, like next week, I think. He gave an interview to the Irish Times and touched on the current political climate. Speaking about how many fellow rock stars have been consistently outspoken against Donald Trump, he said, "Fucking Neil Young is angrier than ever. Geez Louise." But yeah, of course, it's hard not to feel political living in America where we're deeply divided and there's injustice and there's so much hate and fear and it's such a drag. I try to love everyone because I think that's what you're supposed to do. And I do. But there needs to be change in that direction, and it's been hard to find in the States. And so he doesn't say a lot about these things, but obviously he has opinions. He wants to bring everybody together. And obviously, when you say something against one side, you're alienating the other. It's very difficult, but we are in a trying time, and I feel it. So, and we'll see Dave Grohl at Bottle Rock in Napa next month with the Foo Fighters. So stoked for that. One of my favorites. Getting to see them again will be amazing. Looking forward to it. So that is our show for today. Thank you for tuning in. Again, next week we have the format. We have Limbeck, and we have one other band that is. Oh yeah, hold on. It was California. It was Phantom Planet, California Limbeck, and Phantom Planet performances from Golden Gate Park. Just this weekend. So for all of us here at Concert Pipeline, I'm Steve Jones. We'll catch you next time.